Located in Guilford, Maine, Piscataquis Community Secondary School is home to teacher Ryan Bodding. Ryan's been using the game Civilization to revolutionize the teaching of his history class.
I started thinking about what I could do to, like if I was a student in my classroom, how I would want to learn history, right? I'm a social studies teacher. And I was brainstorming how how I originally got into history and wanted to learn about about all these different cool stories that happen throughout history. And really, it was through games. Games like Civilization, like I'm using in the class, like Assassin's Creed.
So, with the support and encouragement of the building principal, John Keene, Ryan set out to develop a world history class that would combine his love of learning, history, and his love of games.
The idea started like 2 years ago, because I've always wanted to try to integrate like real video games in my classroom, like quotes real video games in my classroom. Right. And one game that I always really liked, with history and geography and stuff like that is Civilization. And the class could go two directions from here, right? Like I could either make a game that's centered around the class or a class that's centered around the game. You know what I mean? And those are things seem like really, really different from each other. And I decided to go around the class centered around the game, because that's what I would have wanted when I was in high school. Right? So that's stuff like that was what would have got me interested in history.
Now that Ryan had the framework for his world history class, he needed the hardware. Civilization is too complex a game to run on the school's iPads, so in order to realize his vision, he needed a more robust gaming platform. A local butcher shop named Herring Brothers stepped up to the plate by donating gaming computers to be used by the esports team and by Ryan's history class.
The game that they play, basically they are taking a civilization from hunter-gatherer society all the way to modern day, and that is they progress through history interacting with each other in one huge multiplayer game, so they're playing with each other. Mm-hmm. And so they're able to examine things like and directly interact with things like technology, resources, trade, politics with each other in class, alliances, war. You get more modern day, you deal with more serious topics like mutually assured destruction, and things like that, which the game is really, really good about recreating.
Now that everything was in place, it was time for Ryan to turn his vision into his reality.
So what we do is about 2/5 of the classes, basically whenever we have class on Thursdays or Fridays, and we have alternating days when they have classes, we play the game, and we spend the whole class playing the game. Whenever anything interesting happens in the game that happened in real life, I like make a note of it. I've played the game before, so I kind of know what's going on. I'm watching over their shoulders, listening to their conversations. While the game, naturally, because they're all playing it with each other, is creating a type of alternate history, they're still interacting with very real things, right? And so so I make note of everything that they're interacting with, and then about 3/5 of the classes, whenever we have class on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, we're in the classroom talking about stuff that they interacted and giving context to what they interacted with in the game. In addition to like a little bit of normal history class stuff, we still have to talk about like real events as opposed to just talking about resources or technologies and things, and politics and stuff.
On gameplay days, students take a break from the game every 10 to 15 minutes for a mini lesson from Ryan. This provides history and context to a technology they have just discovered. For example, the wheel.
So the wheel is a round object with a hole or axle through its center. Taken alone, it's of little use, but when part of a transportation system, including roads and draft animals, it is of extraordinary value to human civilization.
The school recognizes that learning through games isn't for every student, so they offer a more traditional world history class along with the world history class that uses the game Civilization. When I asked students why they chose this class instead of a more traditional class, this was their response.
Get to actually see how everything worked and how they built and created things and going along with each other. More hands-on.
Going forward, Ryan will continue to build his game-based learning class with Civilization, but also will start to include a new game called Humankind.
Humankind is kind of cool because rather than there being an end goal like Civilization, by achieving a bunch of different smaller goals throughout history, you get this thing called fame, and whoever has the most fame at the end wins. So it's about like being a memorable civilization as opposed to the first civilization to do something.
If you'd like to learn more about what Ryan is doing, you can email him at rbodding@sad4.org or follow him on TikTok, where he regularly posts videos about his classroom and the game-based learning world history class that he teaches.